Well, I didn't even do a gradual return to work. I had to find my own work because I left. But if you are a nurse or a healthcare worker who stays on, you do a 2 or 6 or 8 week gradual return where your hours and shifts incrementally go up, and they assume that your tolerance will be sufficient by the end of that. But if you have to do it on your own, I slept and said on my own, as I've had to do it on my own,
Mhm.
I've wanted to work. There's no, I'm looking for a new employer. You can't say, hey, can I do a really slow, gradual startup as you've hired for me for this job so I can build my tolerance? You can't do that.
Well, you can.
I
I've
suppose you
I've
can.
I've done it many times actually since, and I never went back full time again after once I realized that was
Yeah.
just not a possibility, and I wrote that into the terms of every agreement that I've had since. And with this last situation, I was very upfront with the owners of the store, and I wanted them to know exactly what they were getting into with me, and I wanted them to understand where I was coming from, and that I do have, they're getting some value for their money, but there's downsides to hiring me too. And
Mm-hmm.
in that environment, in the environment I'm working right now, I had never been involved in a place that was dealing with narcotics on that scale before, and I'd never worked directly and almost entirely solely with that with the demographic people who are using drugs chronically, or who are living in shelters and stuff like that. So I told them that I was concerned, and I said, "This is I want you guys to know that I'm not going to we're not going to use any of the normal, BC Employment Act standard stuff. I'm telling you right now that I'm basically waiving all those rights, and because I want you to understand that I'm going to try this at, we 3 days a week was what we agreed on, and we can reevaluate it after a month. And if I think I can do it, then we can, look at adjusting what we want to do from there. And if you guys feel that I'm an asset at that point, then we can make the call. But I said, if you see anything where you feel like I'm not the right fit for this, don't think that you're like, there's not going to be any probationary period or anything like that. Just tell me it's not working out, and I will just simply go away. That's, there's not going to be any kind of back and forth legal
Mm-hmm.
nonsense. So, I and they were happy with that, I think, because that really that gave them a good opportunity to, I mean, that's a genuine probationary period. Like there's no set recourse line or anything as far as, if they wanted to get rid of me, they could still get rid of me. And I would just say, no, that's fine.
Yeah.
If I'm not I want to be here it's a very, it's a different position. It's a complex position, and both of, it requires, have an ability to handle stress and logistics that is much different from a normal pharmacy. And so I gave, that was my kind of solution to making sure that I wasn't taking on too much too fast. But I agree with your, like, this situation, like, let's keep looking at ER nurses here, because when I
Sure.
think ER nurses, I think they're the most salient example of a situation that is just not working out. Like,
Yeah.
the fact that, I mean, when I was a couple of days ago, I was just sitting here and I was thinking about how many nurses over the years I've seen turn to hydromorph on the job, and I think to myself, like, what a bizarre workplace environment. What a strange career that would put you in a position where, you know, I I would I would struggle to find a single person who would guess in their wildest dreams or nightmares that they were going to be a nurse and it was going to lead to them using IV or IM or anything, like, injecting hydromorph on the job.
Oh my God.
It's just, and the fact that it's so rampant, and it speaks volumes about the working conditions.
Mm-hmm.
So this idea when we're talking about, weakening one's resilience or whatever by going off work, and for anyone who's had that problem, addiction problem with hydromorph or anything else, I think a better solution would be we can't have people off work for more than a year if they're going to stay in that field. I would say would be the first stipulation. Because the stats after a year get bad, like as far as mental health, and you're even returning to work, the chance of you returning to work dramatically decreases after a year.
Yeah.
So I think there needs to be a set period of time where the focus is entirely on the individual getting their ability to make a authentic, well-informed decision about whether or not they want to continue in the field, and so that would require some resources and some personal work, and probably talking to a counselor, a therapist, whatever, getting to the point where they could make that decision. And then if you are going to continue, I think a real graduated, not like, oh, we're going to do half shifts for 4 weeks and then you're back to, a 1.2 or whatever, right? Like it would, a real graduated where you start with like, I don't know, half shifts, 4 hours, just because some of these people are going to they're not going to be able to do it because of PTSD and stuff. So we're assuming we're ruling that out. So people who do want to continue, if they're going to go back and be in anything that resembles that same environment, then I think you have to start way, way slower, and but get them kind of in there in some capacity earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you'd want to get like a 6-month mark, probably is good for most people, just as a general, from what I've seen. So once they've had some time to collect themselves, then start going in, looking at different job options. Or if you do want to go back to your same job, just go in for a couple hours to identify, start picking up on the points of where were the triggers for stress? What were the things that broke me about this position? Can they be remedied either through, greater coping mechanisms that can be developed over time? Or is this something where I need to move entirely out of this field or out of this department or whatever? I think there needs to be a lot more time given to that period of kind of examination, so that we could avoid. So I think that the biggest travesty, besides the point that we have this in the first place, is how many relapses we have with like how many round 2s and round 3s. Yeah. I mean, and close calls on those too, right? Like not just, like we both know people who have like hoarded right up until their contract is done, and then they're not tested anymore, then end up in the very same emergency ward that they're working in with a near-death experience, right?
Yeah. So,
yeah, I don't know. There's and then looking at this budget that BC's rolling out here, about $1 billion over the next 3 years, I guess, of it is for recruitment. It'll be basically mostly trying to get more nurses and then trying to keep doctors from running away with the new with the new agreement. So I don't know if that'll be enough. It's hard to, just the way this money is used, and when I see the bang for the buck, like they're putting out over $500 million over the next 3 years for treatment beds, but all that equates to is like 200, basically you're going to get 200 more beds in the province by the time you're done, but it doesn't do anything to alleviate that middle class pressure where it's still $30,000 for somebody to go to treatment for an inadequate amount of time. So the people who are like, who don't have any money, they'll be fine. They might, they're not fine. They're in a shitty spot, but they might be able to get into a bed sooner. That's possible. I still don't know. Maybe because most of these are going to be like at St. Paul's. I think St. Paul's has 95 of them already claimed. So